Good evening once again, all of our friends, brothers, and sisters, and each and every seeking saint. Uh, this is your opportunity to join us once again, and we're thankful that you have to the Leo and Larry show, the show that lets you know the things you need to know and tells you the places where you need to go. And as always, you know the deal. We have another awesome guest on. And I'm talking about none other than the Reverend Dr. Norman Gamble, pastor of New Ebenezer Baptist Church in Florence, South Carolina. Welcome, Dr. Gamble.
Well, thank you, Pastor Woodbury, for the opportunity to share.
Wonderful, wonderful. And let's jump right in it because I know this is going to be a great conversation. We want people to have an opportunity to learn as much as they can from both spiritual, biblical principles, as well as some of the amazing work that you've done. But I know you're not a native of Florence, though you pastor here. So why don't you, for those folks who don't know you, who may not live in South Carolina or the greater PD area, why don't you tell them a little about yourself, your background, and how you have come to this particular place and time? What are the steps that you had to take in order to fulfill your God-given call?
Yes, I was born in Salta, South Carolina, a small rural community in Williamsburg County. My parents were the late Deacon Sam Gamble Jr., as well as Femina Moore Gamble of Salta, South Carolina. I have five brothers and a sister. We have two surrogate brothers. We were reared in a closely knit family. As with most persons who are born in rural areas, didn't have a whole lot of money in the household, but daddy worked. Daddy worked hard, worked for lumber companies, but did very well. Did very well, and he provided for his family. I often tell people that the role models in my life were my father, who was in the home, who was a disciplinarian, but also very structured. That he was my role model for manhood. In terms of education, my role model was Dr. Charles E. Murray, the principal of C. Murray High School, and my model for social justice was the Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Those three men have had significant impact in my life. I grew up again in Salters. I went to Williamsburg County Consolidated School. Then we transferred to Lanes, Williamsburg County. I said not consolidated, but Williamsburg County School. And then I went to Lane Consolidated School, seventh and eighth grade, because the lines were redrawn. As you know, every 10 years, the lines are redrawn, and we were
Mhm.
in a different district. So I went to Lane's Consolidated School, seventh and eighth grade, and returned to C. Murray High School from ninth through 12th grade. I think during that particular time, as I've often told folk, that teachers have a very important role to play in the lives of children. And I had several teachers that were instrumental in my performance as a student in school. I had several teachers who made sure that those of us who were in school understood that the way to achieve is really through education, and to get a good education, to be studious, to be diligent in your studies, and to strive hard. After leaving Seymour High School in 1976, I matriculated into Benedict College in Columbia, South Carolina. I majored in religion and philosophy. I did not minor in business because at that time, Benedict College did not offer a minor in business, but I had enough hours in business to have had a minor. Courses such as accounting, I did business math, business language, and there was another course, personnel management. So it gave me an opportunity to see that aspect of the business world. Leaving Benedict College, I went to the school that the Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King attended, Colgate Rochester Divinity School, Colgate Rochester Divinity School, Bexley Hall, Crozer Theological Seminary. Dr. King went to Crozer, but the school merged with Colgate some 50 years ago and all became one institution. But I had an opportunity to study with some of the greatest minds in the country at Colgate Rochester Divinity School. And even though I went there, I had not done my initial sermon. I knew from a child that I was called to preach, but I never wanted to do that. I always evaded the call to preach. I was called at 17, but I did not do my initial sermon until age 33. But I knew that was my calling. After I graduated from Colgate Rochester Divinity School in 1983, I came back to South Carolina, and I came home to my parents, and was not licensed, was not ordained then, but I worked very diligently in my home church, which was the Central Baptist Church of Salisbury, South Carolina. And to be honest, I had been struggling, as I said earlier, with the call to ministry. And one night, as I was on my way to a revival, God spoke to me about the ministry. Been struggling, been wrestling, but it was that night that I made up my mind to do what God had called me to do. I went to my pastor's office that Sunday morning after I'd attended that revival that Friday night, and I said, Pastor, I got something to tell you. And he said to me, I know what you're going to tell me before you tell me. And I told him that God had called me to preach. He arranged an opportunity several weeks later for me to do the initial sermon, and everything else is kind of, history. That God called me. I accepted my call to ministry. I preached my initial sermon at the Central Baptist Church, and I continue to work in ministry. One of the things that was pivotal for me, however, growing up, is that I had a Sunday school teacher who was a graduate of Morris College. She got a degree in religion from Morris, and she was my Sunday school teacher at my home church, Central Baptist Church. She became ill in the latter part of her life. She was somewhere between 75 and 80 years old. And she called me one weekend to come to her house. And I went to her house, and she said to me at 14 years old that she said, Norman, I want you to be the adult Sunday school teacher at our church. At that time, we had probably about 15 to 25 adults who would regularly attend Sunday school. I said, Miss Daisy, are you sure you want me to do that? She said, yes, you're studious, you're very smart, very gifted, and I see something in you. So what I would do, Pastor Woodbury, is I would go to her house on weekends, and she would discuss the lesson with me. And I said, Miss Daisy, how in the world could you get all of that out of one verse or one passage, one pericope? But she was very gifted, and she taught me most of what I know now, even though I went to divinity school. I have a BA from religion and philosophy from Benedict College. I really got my start from her. And, she taught me, and I became the Sunday school teacher. As a matter of fact, this month, October, will be 52 years that I've been trying to teach the Word of God. And we just credit her with her interest in me and what she saw in me to begin to delve into the Word of God. I really never necessarily wanted to pastor anybody's church, even though I knew that ultimately I would do that. I went to a Black History program over in Timminsville back about 1992. And a gentleman that I knew, he knew of me. He said, our church could really use you. I said, talk to me. He said, our church is without a pastor, and I think you should pay them a visit. Based upon what he said, I came to New Ebenezer that Sunday, and I think that Sunday evening, Dr. James Hall out of Philadelphia was the guest preacher. And I came that morning. He didn't preach the morning, but he preached that afternoon. And I came to that afternoon service, and I learned that he was the father of one of my classmates at the divinity school. And he and I talked and exchanged numbers, and we got acquainted. But I gave the deacon my number, and he called me and asked me would I come and do a message. When I came, I did not present a resume. I only presented a profile, something to introduce me from. And he called me and asked me would I come. Came a couple of Sundays. Then a couple of Sundays passed by, called me again. I ultimately ended up doing the watch night service in 1993. And they wanted me to consider becoming pastor of the church. I think at that time I did not realize they had about 30 applications on file from persons who had applied for the church. So I submitted just the resume, and they said that I was one of the two candidates that they were looking at. And March 12, 1993, the church met, and from my understanding, about 94% of persons voted that I come to be the pastor. And that's how I became pastor of New Ebenezer Baptist Church. Now,
how many years ago was that?
We are in our 32nd year now.
Okay.
Yeah, we're in our 32nd year now. at New Ebenezer.
Mhm.
We
And you
have
heard
been, go
you heard
ahead.
me chuck you heard me chuckle a couple of times while you were talking, and I chuckled because I too, when I got the calling, ran from it like Jonah for
Ah,
for many years. I had like 10 years I ran from my calling. And then just as you said, I never wanted to pastor. I enjoyed being an evangelist. I said, well, I could go as an evangelist, I could go step on all the toes I feel necessary, and I can leave and I don't have to deal with the repercussions. But like you, I got an invitation and then I got another invitation. And yeah, so I just chuckled a couple of times because you're not the only one who did the Jonah thing that, we get these callings, but I respect you because many people who do that because they know the seriousness
yes.
of accepting that call. Yeah. But go right ahead. Continue. Take us on the next stage of your journey once you became a pastor.
Yeah, once I became pastor of New Ebenezer Baptist Church, I contend that in order to become the pastor of any church, you must endear the people to you. You teach the word, you preach the word, but you must also do a lot of things to endear the people. What are some of those things, Pastor Gamble? You do funerals, you do weddings, you visit the schools, you go to the prison, you do counseling sessions, you have anniversary celebrations, birthday celebration, baby dedication, those kinds of things. But you let your people know that you are concerned about them, the whole self, not just the spiritual self, but the whole self, their emotional state, their mental state, how they're doing in school, how they're doing at their places of employment. One of the best things I think that happened to me, I'd been, and it was probably less than 3 years at the church, and we had an affair. We had the Congress, I think it was held in Spartanburg, South Carolina. And one of my members, her daughter was there and had gotten sick. But she said this, that Reverend Gamble is going up there and he'll take care of her. That made me
Mm,
feel good to know that I had been there so short of time. But she had that kind of faith in her pastor to know that her daughter was in good hand, even though she wasn't going. She went up there at the time that my pastor's going, and he'll make sure that she's okay. I think you have to
mm,
endear your people to you. You teach, you preach, you model the word of Christ, but you let people know that you care about them, their aspirations, their goals, where they're headed to. And also, there are times, I think, as you well know, Pastor Woodbury, our job as pastors, we are to teach, we're to educate, we're to cultivate, but we cannot make people do things. We do our
mm,
best to persuade them, but it's up to
mm,
them to make the decision in terms of their careers, in terms of how they rear their family, in terms of relationships, those kinds of things. So we've spent quite a bit of time dealing with our congregation, and something that's helped me, because I also served on the school board for 24 years in Waynesburg County. I got off the school board in 2014, but I love working with children. I have a bias. My people know that at the church. Don't bother my children, and don't bother my senior citizens. If you bother my
mm,
children and you bother my senior citizens, you're gonna have a fight faster. So I work with children. When I was in the high school, I worked basketball. I did Explore Scout. I worked with a modeling group there because I wanted children to understand that they have something to offer. I learned a maxim by Dr. Benjamin Mays in the early 80s that I've shared with my kids at the school, my kids at church. It's entitled Strive Hard. If you come to New Ebenezer and I start it, my members will finish it. Strive Hard simply says this: whatever you do, strive to do it so well that no man living and no man dead and no man yet to be born could do it any better. Again, strive hard says, whatever you do, strive to do it so well that no man living and no man dead and no man yet to be born could do it any better. 95, 97, 90% of my kids know that because we say it often from the pulpit. And then sometimes I'll stop them when they're at church, recite strive hard for me, recite strive hard for me, because I want them to understand that the sky's the limit, that they can accomplish and achieve whatever they want to accomplish, if they're willing to put forth the effort and energy in order to achieve it. I was at a conference in 1989 in Florida, and the guy who was talking was a demographer. He was talking about demographics, income, how you read, those kinds of things. And he said this, that children need to, that parents need to understand, and teachers need to understand that one of the greatest problems we face in our school is the problem of low self-esteem. Not so much the money that's not coming in the house, not so much where they're read, not so much the house they live in, but low self-esteem. Our job, adults, as teachers, as trainers, is to help children to understand that they can achieve, they can accomplish things at high levels. And that if they're willing to put forth the effort and energy in order to be whatever they want to become, they can do that. I was at another conference in Lexington, Kentucky, back in 1991, and the young lady who was doing the conference was telling us various things about the TRIO programs. These programs are in most of the high school, upward bound, educational talent cert, student support services. They're in the schools. But she said that she conditions her child to help her to understand that whatever you put in your mind at a young age, you're going to become that. I had an opportunity to go to Nashville, where she lived, and she and her husband invited me over for dinner. And I said this to my congregation on Sunday. The little boy was walking through the house saying this. He was 4 years old, 4 years old. I'm a mathematical genius. I'm a mathematical genius. I'm a mathematical, at 4 years old. They were acculturating and conditioning him so that he would understand that we have high expectations of you. You're beautiful, you're intelligent. Son, we realize that you're African-American, you're gonna be an African-American male in America. And we want you to understand that you're loved by your parents and that we do expect, we have high expectations of you. And I think it's important for us to have high expectations of children. I say to my parents, and when I speak at schools, let's be careful the labels that we put on our children. Stop calling them stupid. Stop calling them stupid, dumb, and ignorant. If you call them that long enough, that's how they will act. Tell them how intelligent they are, how gifted they are, and what high expectations you have of them. Tell them that they're going to achieve. Tell them that they will not be a stat. They're not going to be in prison. They're not going to be unemployed. But let them know that they can achieve and that they will achieve and that you will support them in that effort. Things that we've tried to do at New Ebenezer Baptist Church has been along those lines. Our motto has been for the last 21 years, to serve the present age, our calling to fulfill. To serve the present age, our calling to fulfill. That's why we've had after-school program. That's why we have karate for children. That's why we have youth activities. That's why we have children in oratorical contests and things of that nature, because I think it's important for us to pour into our young people. When God gave me the vision in 2005 for the Strive Hard Educational Recreation and Enrichment Center, it is a center that is designed to uplift, to encourage, a center that is designed to recognize the giftedness of our children. And I do need to share this story with you. I had a trustee of mine from Philadelphia, very good trustee, who said to me, Pastor, when this building is completed, it should be named in your honor. I said, say what? He said, it should be named in your honor. I said, let the church make that decision. We had a business meeting, a church conference, maybe a couple of months after he made the statement. And I said to him this. I said, you remember the old Eckerts that used to be in town?
Right.
Yeah, I was there. And a gentleman came up when I was getting out of my vehicle. As a matter of fact, he's an attorney here in town now, Attorney Weaver. And he said to me, he said, Reverend Gamble, as I was getting out, he said, you don't know me, but I know you. He said, my sister, Tanya, was a member of your Upward Bound program. And she said, Tanya would come home every day saying to us, whatever you do, strive to do so well, that no man living, and no man dead, and no man yet to be born could do it any better. And as a result of you teaching her that, I learned it. I'm now an attorney in Florence, but you inspired me more than you could ever imagine. He said that to me. So when I got to that meeting, that conference that the church was having, and they voted on naming the building after me at the beginning of the meeting. They voted to name it the Reverend Dr. Norman Gamble Educational Recreation and Enrichment Center. And I said to them at the end of that meeting, you all have honored me. And I appreciate the high honor you bestowed upon me to name this facility after me. But let's change the name. Let's change the name. I said, if you don't mind, and I told them the story about the attorney who talked to me at Eckers. And I said, furthermore, I spoke at Kingstree Senior High several years ago. And a young lady who had a very, very difficult time after her father passed. She was in medical school at the time and she almost stopped. She almost gave up. She almost quit. But she said, there was a gentleman who came to my school and he was speaking for the honors program and he did a very good job. But at the conclusion of his message, he said this to us: whatever you do, strive to do it so well that no man living and no man dead and no man yet to be born could do it any better. And she said, I remember him saying that. And it was that quote that got me through my father's death and got me out of medical school. And I thank him. And I thank you, Reverend Gamble, for sharing it with me. There was another young lady out of Virginia. She was a former basketball player of mine. I saw her several years later or earlier before this meeting. And she said, Reverend Gamble, do you know what I wrote my senior paper on? I said, no, sweetie, I have no idea. Strive hard. Whatever you do, strive to do it so well that no man living and no man dead and no man yet to be born can do it any better. Johnny G was at Tuskegee. He was on their radio program. He closed out during the evening. And Johnny G, who was a former Upward Bound student of mine, would say this: ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, whatever you do, strive to do it so well that no man living and no man dead and no man yet to be born can do it any better. I talk about a drummer in Williamsburg County who played drums at a lot of the programs for various churches. And he'd see me on the street and say, Reverend Gamble, whatever you do, strive to do so well. There's no man living, and no man dead, and no man yet to be born to do it better. I said, oh, just hush him out, man, hush him out. But they learned it, they internalized it. Because I understood that if they understood what that meant, whatever you do, and prayerfully is positive, it's constructive. Whatever you do, strive to do so well that no man living and no man dead and no man yet to be born can do it better. I shared those stories with my congregation, and I said, you guys have honored me by naming this facility after me. And when the annals of history are written, let them know that the first name was the Reverend Norman Gamble, Strive Hard Educational and Recreation Facility. But if you don't mind, let us change the name. Now, when it was voted on the first time, there were about 95, 96% of people who voted, but everybody didn't vote. But when I brought up the change of the name, everybody supported it. So that's how it became the Strive Hard Educational, Recreational, and Enrichment Center that we call the SHREC.
And I understand that the anniversary of the center is coming up shortly, and that, you know, I commend you because so many of our churches are what I call indwelling. You know, they're concerned with what goes on behind the walls of the church. And it's sad because we've seen churches and communities that were once thriving, and now because those communities have sort of crumbled, and now they just are riddled with problems such as drugs and shooting, you know, and all of those sorts of things. But by you putting together the SHREC, as we call it, that gives an opportunity for New Ebenezer to go out beyond the walls of the church and be outreaching rather than indwelling. So if you would, sir, why don't you share some of the activities that happen and take place in within the SHREC?
I'm going to share that. Before I do that, I want to share another story. There was a popular sermon that was broadcast all over the country back in the mid 80s. It was called Watch Them Dogs by the late Reverend B.W. Smith. I think Dr. Smith passes in Buffalo. But Watch Those Dogs could be heard at 11 o'clock. It could be heard at 11 o'clock in the morning, 11 o'clock at night. Well, he came to Trinity about 25 years ago, and he preached that sermon over at Trinity. And before he preached, the brother of Dr. W.P. Diggs, Dr. Howard Diggs of Charlotte, said this. He said, now I know some of you preachers are going to get upset with me for what I'm about to say, but I want you to listen to what I'm saying. He said that the church building itself is the most unused building that we have. Sunday morning services, revival, a wedding, a funeral, maybe VBS. Now, before he said that, this was already my mindset, but he served as confirmation for me. He said, why not build a facility that can be used on a 24-hour basis? Why not do that? Where you can have plays and you can have tournaments and you can have things going on. And as I said before, he said that that was already my thought process. And when I gave the vision to the church, probably more than half of my people still wanted to build a church. But I said to them, as your pastor, that's not where God is leading me. Now we may build a church, but that will not be the first building that we build. And we went through the process of capital stewardship, of having someone to come in to teach us how to raise monies to help with the facility, to fund the facility. But as time has gone on, I am well convinced that over 90% of my people understand why we needed to build a facility first. As I said earlier, our theme and our motto has been to serve the present needs, our calling to fulfill. As a result of this facility, we have church services there at 10:30 in the morning. We have a 7:30 service over at the church because we still have two services even after COVID. We have plays such as God's Trombone. We had a group out of Los Angeles to come and do a play for us. We're going to have one when I talk about the week's event in a few minutes. That's going to be with us. We do weddings there. We do funerals there. We were blessed because there was a church in the area that had some renovations going on in the church, so they could not worship there. And they asked us to use our facility on Sunday at maybe 1 o'clock after we'd finished our services. So we were able to do that. The Wisdom Players have done their performances there. Kamala Harris, when she was running for president, did her town hall meeting at our facility. We have karate tournaments there. We have self-defense women going on. We have classes that are designed for the hearing impaired. And if you want to learn how to communicate with them, you can do that. A minister of mine, the Reverend Minister Marcus Simmons, brought an idea to my assistant to the pastor, the Reverend Sandra Carter, back in 2019 about feeding on a daily basis. He initially brought the idea to us. We worked with several churches. You talked about collaboration earlier. We worked with several churches, and about 3 or 4 of us that got together and said that we are going to feed not just on Easter, not just on Veterans Day, not just on Labor Day, not just on Christmas, not just on Thanksgiving, but we're going to feed every day. So we've been feeding since February of 2019, every day between 3:30 and 4:30, a meal for persons who are impoverished, persons who are unemployed, persons who have a difficult time making ends meet. So that's one of our most effective meetings. We call it the Brothers Keepers Feeding Ministry. We have computer classes for seniors that go on, cake decorating classes. Dollar General will do their quarterly or semi-annual meeting at our place. We have a summer program for children between the ages, I think, of 5 and 13, where children can come during the summer and know that they have a safe haven, a place that's of a safe haven nature. And one of the things that I've always wanted to do as pastor is to be able to employ college students during the summer. So we may have anywhere from 5 to 10 college students who are employed with us for the summer program. And parents are excited about it because they can go to work and not worry about where their child or children are or they're being taken care of, because we also have an atmosphere where learning goes on. They take field trips and those kinds of things. So God has gifted us and God has blessed us to be able to be an asset to the community. That's why we call it the Strive Hard Educational, Recreational, and Enrichment Center. We're trying to empower.
Right. And we had just last week, Congressman Ro Khanna out of California had a kind of roundtable discussion at the SHERAC, and that was right after, I'm sorry, that was Monday. And that was right after he had been at Claflin College and also had students from South Carolina State. And he brought several people along with Congressman Clyburn. I'm talking about vice presidential level and more from all of these companies, Google, Meta, OpenAI, just Microsoft, on and on. And they were talking about opportunities too for young people in the tech industry. And those are jobs that, young people could go into and know that they'll have secure employment for a lifetime. So that could well be something that we can have a conversation about. We've been talking with some people at Google. We've even gotten some funding for ourselves and some other organizations for Google from Google. So I think that that is something because you're already well positioned at the SHRAC and you're teaching seniors about computers, but that is something I would like for you to think about and pray about. I understand right now that AI, they're hiring people to work with AI and to do prompts and stuff where they're paying 60 and $70,000 a year to young people who don't even have a college degree. So this is why having facilities like yours in New Ebenezer is so so important, particularly when we're, as you said, we were having that conversation earlier, particularly when we're partnering with each other in order to be able to get the very best for our students. And I like the quote because everybody in my congregation will tell you that I'm always talking about a call to keep I have with God the Father, that we are
Yes,
called,
glorified. That's right.
that we're called to serve the present
Present
age.
age.
Yeah, not to have church like this 1960, 1980, 1990, but to deal with the needs of today. And what are some of the things you're seeing? Because one of the things we wrestle with at Kingdom Living Temple is things like 80% of Black children are now born to single moms. Only one out of every four African American women get married in a lifetime. That our families are broken in many ways. And, how we can, and I'm asking you this knowing that, you don't have the immediate and foolproof answer, but it's something we're wrestling with. How do we help to repair our families that are fractured? And
One
then
of the things that,
you've
yeah, one
seen
of the
the
things that really,
impact on children too, right?
yes, yes. I think more emphasis has to be placed on the home in terms of trying to get the home structured in a manner because children come from homes and they come to school. Schools initially were formed to be babysitting institutions. They were not really formed for education. They've become that over the time period. But I think
Mhm.
the emphasis has to be on home. There was a survey done about 30, 40 years ago where children were asked about the influences on their lives. If my memory serves me correct, the home was number one, church was number two, community was number three, and the prayer groups was number four. Those
Mhm.
same children were surveyed about 30 years afterwards in terms of where they thought the influences would lie with children now. Home was still number one, but church was no place on the map. The
Mhm.
prayer group had moved into number two. Children are very concerned about what other children think about them and how the people feel about them. They're concerned about fitting in, becoming a part of, and what sociologists call establishing a belonging identity. But
Mhm.
home is still strong. So more emphasis has to be spent on the home and whatever we know. My wife used to be part of a parenting group. She was over the parenting program in Waynesboro County for a while. And she
Being
spent a
part
lot
of
of
a
emphasis
parenting
in
group
dealing with,
and
even though you're absolutely right that it seems that about two-thirds of our kids now are being reared in single parent homes, we still must spend time with the home, finding what the needs are, how we can help, how we can mold and reshape the thinking process. And as you well know, it's a process of acculturation. How do we condition them? But I think that in many instances, when you look at persons who are in prison, look back at the home life. Look
mhm.
at persons who struggle with gangs, look back at the home life. And to be honest, the African American male must play a major role in that.
Absolutely. And I wanna lift up something that you said. You talked about conditioning. And a lot of people may look at that in a negative light, but we are all being exposed to conditioning every day. You know, some people just pick out rap music or social media, but television commercials, you
Yeah,
know, what our friends say. And so it is imperative that we condition our children, you know, that while we build a foundation of knowledge and concern and caring and spiritual values, that should be the foundation on which they erect everything else in their lives. So I love the fact that you brought that up, but I want to emphasize to our listening audience that conditioning, often seen as a bad word, is something that all of us are exposed to every day. That's what happens late at night with all these infomercials, right? They try to
that's right.
condition us to believe that we need their product, right? Yeah. So,
That's
so
correct.
why don't you talk about the anniversary? You got an anniversary coming up.
Yes, we have the
We
10th
want
year
people to
anniversary
know about that.
of the
Yeah.
Strive Hard Educational Recreation and Richmond facility. It begins on November 10th. November 10th, we'll have a worship experience on that Sunday evening at 5 o'clock p.m. And then on Monday, Monday has been designated Women's Night. It's
Hmm.
Women's Night on Monday night. So everything that will be involved Monday night will be concerning the development, the successes of women, and we will applaud women for their lives. I think we have two comedians coming in on Monday night with the women to have some fun, because I think, as you well know, laughter is therapeutic, and
Hmm.
sometimes it's laugh about a situation. It gives us a paradigm shift, and we look at it differently. So Monday night is women's night, and Tuesday night is men's night. One of the things I've asked them to concentrate on, want to deal with gangs, want to deal with absenteeism in school, the dropout rate among Black males. Statistics tell us that an African American male has decided by grade 3 whether he's going to
Yeah.
graduate from high school or not.
Mhm.
If that is indeed true, we need to make sure we put emphasis on our young boys. Dr.
Mhm.
Juwan Jufu out of Chicago says that in order for a boy to become a man, he must see a man. We must we must have more male role models for our kids, even if there's not a father in the home. We need to seek a male role model, whether it's a coach, or whether it's someone from Sunday school, whether it's someone from community, whether it's a relative. I am convinced that in order for a boy to become a man, again, he must see a man, be around a man, understand a man's mindset. I'm not saying that women cannot rear fine boys, but I don't believe that a woman can teach a boy how to become a man. Nor do I
Yeah.
believe that a man can teach a girl how to become a woman. It
Yeah.
takes another
And you-
female,
and
a woman
and
to do.
you're right. And you're right about the statistics because they actually use statistics, particularly of Black boys who are not proficient, who are falling behind in their studies by the third grade. Those are some of the statistics they use in order to determine how many jails and prisons have to
That's
be.
correct. That is
That's a
correct.
sad, sad situation, you know. Right. So I didn't mean to interrupt you, but I
Oh, you're
just
good. We're good. We're
want
good. We're good.
to
We're good.
know that. Yeah.
Yeah,
So,
yeah. So we're talking about things like that on that Tuesday night, but it's for it's for the boys, it's for the men, it's for our grandfathers, our fathers, our nephews, our cousin. We want it to be a male thing where we talk among and between ourselves, because there's some
mhm.
issues that are prevalent for us that we need to discuss, that we need to be able to share among us and between us. So we'll be doing that on the Tuesday night. Wednesday night we will have gospel night. We'll have our city choir and one or two other groups, but we'll also have Doc McKenzie out of Lick City. Doc is known across this country for what he's
Mhm.
done and what he does, but he will be our headliner on that Wednesday night. Thursday night is our theatrical night. We have a group out of Charlotte. They will be bringing the play to us, First Lady. First Lady. They've done it quite often over the last several years. We met with them already, and they're looking forward to coming to Florence to present the play First Lady. One of the writer, the director says it's a very powerful play, and sometimes because it deals with some of the abuse that happens in relationships, and sometimes
Mhm.
out of their plays because it's kind of heavy and hard for them. It brings back a lot of memories, or maybe something that people are going through at this particular time. But that play will be on Thursday night. On Friday night, we have one of our models. Her mother is Michelle Lyles. Her father is Brother Lyles, and she has become a popular young lady. She has her own line of clothing, if I'm not mistaken. She does her own shows, but children are asked to participate as well. So Friday night is our youth night, where we'll have somewhat of a youth explosion for our children, so they can come and be active. They can also register for that show, and there's a cost associated with also Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday night. I don't have all the costs in front of me, but we can get that information to you so that you can broadcast it for us. Saturday, Saturday we will have a prayer breakfast that morning, and then athletical activities. We'll have basketball, we'll have cornholes, we'll have horseshoes, we'll have volleyball, we'll have pool, we'll have bidwiss, we'll have chess, we have a ping pong. Saturday is an athletic event, but that's Saturday night. We'll have none other than Luther Barnes. He will close us out that Saturday night with the worship experience through songs. So it's a week full of activities, a week full of fun, week full of teaching, week full of inspiration, and we want the community to come and be a part of us and join in with us with the celebration. Because even though the SHREC, the brainchild of the SHREC is this pastor of New Ebenezer, we've tried to make the SHREC a community facility. That's why those things that I talked about in terms of the weddings, the funerals, the plays of the Wisdom Player, and other groups will come in from time to time to use one of our classrooms for meetings or something of that nature, because we want it to be community oriented.
Yes, absolutely. And we look forward to partnering with you in addition to the dinner event with Congressman Ro Khanna from California. We will be hosting our 15th annual Creating a Climate for Change conference. And we have had the conferences in recent years, at the Civic Center, at the SIMT building. But they got a new person at the SIMT building, and they did not book us this year. And we just got in the habit of going where we've been going. And when that happened, my wife reached out to Reverend Carter, and she said, "Why not go to the SHREC?" And I'm going to tell you, I'm so glad that that happened, because this allows us to have a location that is more convenient for people in the community to go to, and also we're leaving resources with the church and in our community. So I want you to know that as long as you guys have an open door for us, and look for us to have more events at the SHREC. And I'm sure that's okay with you, right, Pastor?
As the pastor would say during the sermon, amen.
Amen. Yes,
The other thing I wanted to share is that we have clothes giveaway every first Saturday of the month. Every first Saturday. We had so much clothes the last first Saturday, and I didn't think they won't be able to give away, but they gave away probably about 90% of it. And people have an opportunity to come and get clothing for the children, for the families, and those kinds of things. That's very important. Now, something that we did, I think it was during Hurricane Florence, but also a shelter where families can come who have been displaced as a result of the hurricane, whether it's a flood or whether their houses have been damaged. I believe it was during Hurricane Florence. We had about 50 families with us that stayed with us for about a week.
Well, okay, great. And so, that's another thing that we can work on as we start to come to a close, that we actually have these solar-powered rapid response disaster relief kits where people can shelter in place, in large numbers. And we have 27 of them in 10 states, as well as 12 of them in the state of South Carolina. So it would be great if we can partner with that, because these storms are going to, as the scientists tell us, are going to increase in intensity and frequency, as we've seen in Asheville. And it's real important that we prepare so that we can keep folks safe. You know what I mean? So I'm
Right.
just from this conversation, I'm just seeing several opportunities we have to partner together in the future, because as we both know, we're to serve the present age, right?
Age. That's right.
Yes, yes.
Present
And
age.
and so as I said, this that we're coming to an end. This is the first time we have you on, but I'm looking forward to you coming on again in the future and us talking about maybe some things that we are working on together. But I know the time went quickly to you because
It
folks
certainly
tell us,
did.
yeah, yeah, because this is
Do I get a closing statement?
yeah, yeah. I was gonna say, give us a closing statement and also let folks know how they can reach you and the church. Mhm.
Okay, you can reach us at the New Ebenezer Baptist Church at 387-669-3861. 843-669-3861. My email is Dr. Norman DRNGATTHESHEREC that's the initials of my name and Dr. Norman Gamble, but it's DRNG. But I want to say to the members of New Ebenezer, I thank you for your support. I thank you for your love. I thank you for your willingness to participate in ministry, because God has blessed us richly with a fine group of people who are willing to do ministry.
Absolutely. And before I share our contact information, it would be remiss if you did not share also the website. I'm sure you guys have a website as well.
Yes, www.nebchurch14.org.
Amen. Amen. So thank you so much for
Thank
being
you for having me.
yes, yes, and informing folks about the many things that are being done by New Ebenezer. And folks, don't forget November 10th, the, the 10th anniversary celebration for the Chirac Center and New Ebenezer Baptist Church. And if you want to reach me, as some of you already know, you can email me at info@newalphacdc.com. Don't forget to go to our website, newalphacdc.com, and you can also reach me at the church, where I am privileged and honored to humbly serve as pastor. And that's Kingdom Living Temple, 705 South Irby Street in the Magic City of Florence. Telephone number 843-799-0740. And so until next week, this time, if God so will, join us again next week for the Leo and Larry show that tells you the things that you need to know and tell you the places you need to go. God bless you.
God bless.